This is Gemara Shavuos, Daf Yomi Gimel, and we're holding on. The top of Yigimel Amar Aleph, we like all the incredible Zchusim HaTorah. Torah Birabim, to be an incredible Zchus Refuah Shalema for Tinok Mrim Ahuva B'Seich Sha'ar Chayli Yisrael. So we might be on the journey towards the Shavuos, but in Daf Yomi world, we're in middle of Yom Kippur, knee deep in the famous Shitas of Rebbe, Shitas Rebbe that Kol Avira Shabbat Torah, whether you did Tshuva or not, the Heilig Tag Yom HaKippurim is Mechaper, aside for the big three, Payrikol, Mikalapanim B'Torah, Mefer Bris. So we're 8 lines down. The first word line is Mechaper. Says the Gemara, my Taima de Rebbe. What is the reasoning of Rebbe that Yom Kippur brings kapara even without tshuva? Titanya, we learned in our Braisa, Kidvar Hashem baza. Says the pasuk, the word of Hashem is despised. What does that refer to? Zaparega lumigale banim b'Torah. Ves mitzvah soyhafer. Continues the pasuk. Ves mitzvah soyhafer. Zamifer brisbe basar yikares tikares. Says the pasuk, he'll surely be cut off. Yikares on the Kippurim. He'll be cut off before Yom Kippur. Tikares lacher Yom Kippurim. Yochel, I would think afilu asa tshuva. Perhaps won't have a havamina that maybe even tshuva is not mechaber for these avirais. Talmud loymar avoynai ba loy amarti el bizman shavoynai ba. But once one does tshuva, then Yom Kippur is mechaber. So what do we see? We see that the big three over here will get tshuva via Yom Kippur if he is mechaper. The obvious diak is, but other averos, not these three, will afford tshuva via Yom Kippur even without tshuva. Says the Gemara, that Shitas Rabbi. V'Rabbanan, first word on the line, 15 lines down. How does he darshin? He carries what does that teach us? Shemasa tshuva umeis. He does tshuva and he dies. Misa mima rekes, then Misa will cleanse him. That is the machlekes Rebbe and the Rabbanan had learned the pasuk, which has a tremendous nafkamina, which is at what level Yom Kippur is mechaper on its own. So the reason we brought in Shitas Rebbe is because Rav Zera learned that our Mishnah is Shitas Rebbe. Asks the Gemara, Omi matzes mukvus like Rebbe, is that really Shayech? V'amid the Sefer Rabbi Yehuda, from the Sefer of the Mishnah, it's Rabbi Yehuda, Reishanami, Rabbi Yehuda. Now, how do we know the Sefer is Rabbi Yehuda? Tekatani, we learn Sefer Echad Yisrael, Ve'echad Kayanim, Ve'echad Kayim Mashuach. All of these three people, what did the Sefer teach us? That the Seir Zazel brings tshuva. Omayin islei haisvara. Who holds of this svara that the Seir Zazel brings kapara not only for the Yisraelim, but even for the Kayhanim? Rabbi Yehuda. This is Shitas Rabbi Yehuda. Mechlal. So the obvious inference that if the Seifa is going to be Shitas Rabbi Yehuda, says the Gemara, Mechlal, from here we can infer, Tereisha Rabbi Yehuda, that seemingly the Reisha should be Rabbi Yehuda as well. So asks the Gemara, how could we possibly say that the Reisha is the Rebbe? Amar Rav Yosef, Rav Yosef responds, Rebbe, no, really the Mishnah is Rebbe, like Rav Zera answered. V'savar laki Rav Yehuda. And with regard to the Seir Lazazel, with regard to whether the Seir gives kapara for Kohanim in addition to Yisraelim, Rebbe holds like Rabbi Yehuda. Amr le Abaya, Davka Kamar Mar. Are you saying specifically Rabbi Savar like Rabbi Yehuda? Aval Rabbi Yehuda lo Savar like Rabbi. Is it a one-way street? That Shitas Rebbe regarding Yom Kippur that's mechaber without tshuva. That's the first part of the Mishnah. The second part of the Mishnah is that Rebbe holds like Rabbi Yehuda with regard to Seir Lazazel. But if you flip it around, Rabbi Yehuda does not hold of Rabbi. That's one way to learn. Oidelma, Midirebi, something like Rabbi Yehuda, or perhaps just like Rabbi holds a Rabbi Yehuda, so too Rabbi Yehuda Sarvalanami Kirabi. And if that were to be the case, Miu Orcha Demil Segatani Lemeimar, Rav Yosef just taught it the normal way. The Talmud Sarvala Kirabe. But really, it goes two ways. That Rabbi Yehuda holds like Rabbi Yehuda, and Rabbi Yehuda holds like Rabbi. So what is it? So Amar Le, Rabbi Yosef responds in, yes, Davko Kamina, it was precise that which I said, that what? Rabbi Sarvala Rabbi Yehuda. However, Avol Rabbi Yehuda Loi Sarvala Rabbi. Rabbi Yehuda does not hold of Rabbi. How do I know Rabbi Yehuda does not hold of Rabbi? The Tani learned in a brayso. Yochel, I would think Yom Kippur Mechaber. Al Shavim, Al She'inoi Shavim. Whether one does tshuva, whether one repents, V'dinu. And I'll tell you a Kal V'chaymer. Ha Yel V'chatas V'ashem V'chabrim. Yom Kippur Mechaber. There's three entities of Kabara. There's the Karban Chatas, there's the Karban Asham, and there's Yom Kippur. So just like the Chatas and Asham are Mechaber, in addition as Yom Kippur is, I would have thought the following. Ma chatas v'asham in mechabrim ela ala shavim. That a chatas and asham only works if someone does tshuva, someone repents. Avikiburim mechaber ela ala shavim. Only someone who does tshuva. But says Gemara, wait. Ma chatas v'asham in mechabrim ela mezik yishayek. Chatas, the carbon, of course, we know it doesn't work for a mezid. Karbanoit only work for shaygig. So you can't timer b'diyam kippurim. So you can have, but what about Yom Kippur? So you cannot learn one from the next. So I would think So I would think that when it comes to Yom Kippur, it should have an absolute kapar in all scenarios. Cholak. So where the ach splits it up, the teacher Yom Kippur indeed only is mechaber if one does tshuva. So says the Gemara, that's how the Brisa learns Yom Kippur is only going to work with tshuva. But now we have to prove that this Brisa somehow is going to be showing us that Rabbi Yehuda doesn't hold like Rabbi. So says the Gemara, what's the raya? Stam Sifra, this Brisa is a Sifra. Mani, whom is it? It's Rabbi Yehuda. And what do we just see in the Brisa? Vikamar. Shavim in, loy shavim loy. And the Brisa, we see it's only those who do tshuva. Then Yom Kippur is mechaber. But those who do not, Yom Kippur is not mechaber. So says the Gemara, Rabbi Yehuda is not holding like Rabbi, klape Yom Kippur, whether it's mechaber or not. So when we asked, is it a two-way street? Says Gemara, absolutely not. Rabbi holds of Rabbi Yehuda, but Rabbi Yehuda does not hold of Rabbi. Asks the Gemara, wait, you just quoted me a Sifra, and you told me it's Shitas Rabbi Yehuda, and from there we learn it's only if you do tshuva. But asks the Gemara, 12 lines on the bottom, 1 second. Virami, Stam Sifra, Stira, and Stams. Titanya, we learned in our Brayso. Yochlim, Gimum Chabelam Kain. Hitanebo, and leave you fast. Vikaroyim, Mikra, Kodesh. V'layasam. Vikarim, Mikra, Kodesh. V'lasava Malacham. The only way the Yom Kippur is mechaber is, number one, you fasted. Number two, you called it holy. And number three, you didn't know mulacha. However, on the flip side, if Rachmana litzlan, lo yit'aneh boy, one doesn't fast. And vasva melacha, I would think Yom Kippur is not mechaber. So minayin, from where do we know that it will? Tamalay mar, Yom Kippurim hu, mikol makayim, in all scenarios. So what do we see? Based on this drasha, I asked the Gemara, seemingly Yom Kippur should be mechaber as well. In all cases, not like we just saw a moment ago, the Yom Kippur is only mechaber al shavim if someone does tshuva. Amar Abaye, 6 lines to the bottom, like kasha, ha Rabbi Rabbi Yehuda. That's the chilik, like we just said. Rav Amar Hava Rabbi Umayde Rabbi Bekares. Dig Yoma. Rebbe admits that someone is kares for not following Yom Kippur itself, then there is no kabara unless he does tshuva. If you don't say this, kares Yom Kippur and the Rebbe Leslie, it's going to come out. It's a one big circle. You can never have kares for violating Yom Kippur because you violate Yom Kippur, but then Yom Kippur itself is mechaber, so there'll never be shaykh to have kares in Yom Kippur. So must be that Rebbe is maida with regarding the din of kares on Yom Kippurim. Says Gemara, wait, why alamalai? Mishkachas laki on the Avid Bilelia umes. We can tell you the case if someone committed din malach on Yom Kippurim at night, and then he died, and therefore what? The day of Yom Kippur did not pass by to give him the kapara. Says the Gemara, Elaima, you know what I'll tell you as we turn over to Yud Gimel Amid Beis. Kares, the Imam al Rebbe Leslie, Rebbe doesn't hold of this kares. Alam Allah, he asked the Gemara, Meshach Ladachal Umsa V'chankei Umes. So when he ate something on Yom Kippur, he choked it and he dies. Inami. Says the Gemara, there's no absolute raya. And we continue 4 lines down, quoting the Mishnah. Echad Yisrael v'echad Koyanim v'echad Koyin Mashuach. They all get kapara from this Ir Lazazel. Ask the Gemara Guva Kasha. Katani Echad Yisrael v'echad Koyin Mashuach. V'hader Tani, and then we learn Ma ben Yisrael Koyanim u'Koyin Mashuach that they're not the same. So are they the same or are they not the same? Amar Rav Yehuda teaches Rav Yehuda. Chikam, this is what's going on. Mischabrin. When are they mischabrin? B'seir mishtaleach. B'shar aveiros. When are they mischabrin? They're mischabrin b'seir mishtaleach. L'seir la'azazel. B'shar aveiros. For other aveiros. Ve'in chalik b'neiam. And then there's going to be no difference. Oma ben Yisrael l'kayanim. So you have to insert into that clause. And now we can continue and explain what is the chalik in Yisrael and Kayanim v'Kayin Moshuach. Ella, you know what it is? Sha'apar mechaber al Kayanim. That the par is mechaber for Kayanim. Al Tomas Mikdash u'Kedashav, for anyone who violates the Toma of either Beis Hamikdash or Hektish. Omani Rabbi Yehudi, and then it comes out. This could all be Shitas Rabbi Yehuda. Teitanya, this of course a different Rabbi Yehuda. V'chiber as Mikdash HaKodesh. Someone should get a kapara for the Mikdash Kodesh. Zeh lefnai v'lefnim. This refers to if there's tuma lefnai v'lefnim inside the Kodesh HaKodashim. As Oyal Ma'id continues about saying Zeichel Mizbeach Kimashma Chaber Elo Ezras Azarais Koyanim Kimashmoi. Amakahal Eli Yisrael Yechaber Elo Alavim Hoi Hushvu Kulam Mechabar Achas. So says the Brayso, so all of them Koyanim Levim the Yisraelim are equated that they all one form of kabara shemischapim misir hamishtalech b'shar aveiros. The sir mishtaleach, the sir la'azazel gives kabara for shar aveiros. Divrei Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Shimon Aimer kashem shadam sir nasa b'fnim mechaber al Yisrael al Tumas Mikdash v'Kadashav. Kachdam apar mechaber al kehanim al tumas mikdash b'kadashav will also work for the tumah. Ukeshem shevidoy shel siyar mishaleach. Just like the vidoy of the siyar mishaleach is what mechaber al siyar al Yisrael b'shar aveiros. Kach vidoy shel par mechaber al kehanim b'shar aveiros. And that is going to be the different limudim. Well, Rav Shimon asked the Gemara, "Avadei Oshvu, they're equal. My Hoshu, what does that mean? To b'nei kabar ninu. Miu kol chad v'chad mechaber b'navshei. They're b'nei kabara. They each got their own kabara. My time, the Rav Shimon, where does this come from? Says the Gemara. T'chsev. V'lokach hashnei asirim eskish siyar mishaleach l'siyar nasa b'fnim. We have a hekish between the two. Why not? Bishar Averis. So what does Rav Yehuda do with this drasha? Rav Yehuda Melacha. Lahachi is kish. I'll tell you what the hekish is needed for. That what? Sheishavim b'mare ubekoima ubedamim. To teach us that the two seirim have to be alike in all forms, in appearance, in height, and in price. We're going to stop over here. Udasa. We're going to stop over here. Drop early. But the Gemara now is going to continue within this machlekes Rav Yehuda and Rav Shimon, trying to figure out who's the Tana of the next brisa. Pick it up from here. B'siyata Dishmaya.